Hello, I'm Kira Leach, and this is my Behavior Management and Social Skills Screencast. Problem behavior. Why is there problem behavior? Children who are found to be residing in underfunded and understaffed institutions too often, receiving poor care, and being subjected to abuse or neglect. There are adults who no longer model submissiveness and obedience. Because of this, children can see the negative attitudes and behaviors that the parents model, and they also challenge authority. There is also the different approaches parents use when raising their children. The strictness style, which is characterized by excessive adult control, leads to rebellion. There is the opposite of strict, which is complete freedom to do whatever they want. And then the most productive outcome of responsibility and life skills development has the middle ground of both of those approaches. Positive behavior support. Positive behavior support is an initiative that has become a lot more involved and developed in the past decade. Its purpose was to shift the focus of behavior management away from reactive, negative approaches toward children to the more proactive and positive ones. Its objective is not to provide rewards or incentives towards its students for behaving appropriately. They want to stay away from the "you will receive this if you behave well," and focus more on what you will gain from the support. What does the research say? The research about positive behavior support embraces flexibility with respect to scientific practices, valuing the information gained by qualitative research methods such as naturalistic observations and case studies. Educational research is complex. There's a lot of data collection, graphing, and monitoring of the effectiveness of the PBS initiative. The three-tiered model for positive behavior support. As shown, there are 3 tiers in the pyramid. This pyramid shows that all students need to get universal intervention. In the top of the pyramid is the few students who need universal intervention. They have chronic or intense problem behavior. This covers 1 to 7% of students. The middle of the pyramid, these students are at risk for problem behavior. This is 5 to 10% of the pyramid. The bottom of the pyramid are the students who need the universal intervention and do not have any problem behavior at all. This covers 80 to 90% of all students. It is important to keep intervention in all levels of the pyramid in spite of their need or desire to have the intervention. The purpose of a functional behavior. This examines why problem behaviors occur to guide prevention and intervention efforts, increasing efficiency and effectiveness. Behaviors can change extremely quickly because the environmental variables consistently changing. The 3 key concepts are setting events, triggering antecedents, and maintaining consequences. The process of evaluating a child with an FBA. You need to know what is occurring in the classroom or any other place. Sit in the class for a day to observe. Describe what the problem behavior is. What triggers the child's behavior? What are the consequences of the behavior? What are the current plans or strategies in place already? The student input and other. This is the FBA form, the Functional Behavior Assessment. With this form, we did a mock student-to-teacher conflict in our class, and with this form, the first part is the student's information. The second part is the problem behavior, where you describe what happened when there was the issue in the classroom and how often does it happen. Trigger. The third part is triggers. What does the teacher do that possibly brings upon this behavior, or what do other students in the class do, or what does the student itself do that could possibly bring up this behavior? The third part are the consequences. What happens when this problem occurs? What happens to the students? What happens to the teacher? What happens to the student who is doing said behavior? The fourth part would be the current plan or strategy that is in place already. What is the involvement with the teacher, with the parents, what goes on at home? The fifth part is the student input. Has the student said anything that could bring upon this concern or these difficulties that are occurring? The second page is Other, which goes upon the student's strengths, the motivators for the student that could possibly be put in place, the possible replacement behaviors that we need to teach the student. And the final section would be the summary of said issue. So what is the trigger? What are the concerns? What is the target that we're going to aim for? And why would the student do said problems? The bottom boxes are where the people who were present will sign it, and where the actions or the responsibilities are described. The common functions of problem behavior. There are 7 descriptors. To get attention or a reaction from peers and adults. If we look back to the FBA that we filled out, that was one of the things that we wrote down. The student may act a certain way to get a reaction from other people or to get a reaction from the teacher. To get something tangible, they want something. To get power or control, they want to feel that they are higher than the teacher or higher than the other students. To meet a sensory need. To communicate their feelings, their wants, and their needs. They don't want to verbalize their feelings or their wants, so they will act out in a certain way. As a result of lack of understanding, they really just don't get what they need to do, so they're showing it in a way that may seem negative. To escape or to avoid something. It's mainly could be to avoid work that's going on in class, an assignment, to avoid other people, just any sort of avoidance. The model for intervention. This is for after the problem behaviors have been identified in the child. There are 4 tiers for an intervention. There are the instruction tier, the prevention tier, reinforcement tier, and undesirable consequences tier. You must first try the first top 3 tiers of the intervention plan. If those are not successful, then you move to the undesirable consequences tier. Being in this special education class and going through this screencast, I have learned a lot. The key to being a good teacher is knowing your students. This means knowing more than what meets the eye. You need to know what may trigger concern, what may trigger certain behaviors in the different students, the different ways a student may communicate to you, or the different ways a student learns. No 2 students are exactly the same, so they should not be treated as such if there is an individual issue. When you really know your student, you find yourself able to really help that student achieve to their best ability, and you want to be able to act towards them behavior-wise in a correct way. Learn more than your student's name. That will make or break you as a teacher.